Hello, everyone. At the beginning, today, the session is a follow-up one after the last one we had around 3 or 4 weeks from now. After the last session, it turns out that there is plenty of questions you have to ask, and we wasn't able to answer all of them. So first of all, we want to go through the most important question we saw during last webinar. And after that, we want to spend a little bit more time answering the question you put on the chat for us. You can put them on the chat. You can put them on the question panel at the bottom of the page. After the first part, we'll be answering them one by one. I hope we will be able to answer every of it. So let's start. As I said, today, the topic of the webinar is the Q&A around the countdown to 2029, so the end of life of data center. And we will start with the short introduction, who we are, Divinity, which we are representing as a marketplace solution platinum partner, and the solution partner, which means that in general, we are providing all scope of the things you can imagine around the Atlassian stacks, starting from providing professional services, which is my and Simon's responsibility, through producing of the marketplace apps you can find on the marketplace, through license management and selling license. The whole Divinity is around 350 people, 18 years in the ecosystem, so quite a lot. And both me and Simon, we are here for a long time already. And why we are speaking so much about the migration? Because we are doing this on a daily basis. So just a quick intro of myself. I'm Katarzyna, I'm head of Atlassian Services. So I am managing the team who is providing on a daily basis professional services like migrations, upgrades, implementation of new projects, managed services, etc. Simon.
Hi, hello. My name is Szymon Szerewicz. I'm Atlassian DevOps team leader at Divinity. These days, my team is mostly responsible for cloud migration, but still we manage everything what happened in Atlassian Stack background.
Thank you. So as usual, we have a small bonus for those joining us. At the end of the webinar, I will set a little bit more. And one more time, if you want to ask us a question, put them on the chat or on the question panel, and we will be answering them at the end of the webinar. One really important information, this webinar is recording and you will get the access to the recording after the webinar. The second thing, there is a knowledge hub we created where you can find all those information, all those previous webinars we were posted with all the materials we've prepared for you. You will get the link to the knowledge hub just after the webinar, and you will be able there to find also today's webinars will be recording and uploaded there. So what we want to tell about today, the first of all, we will be covering all the rationale and trust concerns and the question around that, then the timelines of the end of data center, planning, cost, licensing, of course, security and compliance, which is always the topic when we are speaking about the migration to the cloud, feature gaps, customization, migration complexity, and at the end, the section for the Q&A. So let's move forward with the first part, which is the rationale and the trust concerns around the cloud. First question is to you, Simon. What does read-only really mean?
Thank you, Katarzyna. After March 28, 2029, Atlassian Data Center won't be just unsupported. It will be frozen. So that means you will still able to open your Jira, open your Confluence spaces, but you won't be able to create, edit, or change anything. So you cannot create new Jira issues, you cannot edit Confluence pages, you cannot do any workflow transitions, you cannot even add comments. So it will be effectively turned to a static archive. You can view all of that information, but you cannot change anything. The more serious part here is security. There will be no more bug fixes, even for critical vulnerabilities. So that means that your DC environment becomes a security risk and fail most modern compliance checks like GDPR or SOX, for example. So read-only here really means that your applications will end of operations. So this system will be frozen in time. Next question for you, Katarzyna. Why did Atlassian state in 2022 that there were no plans for end of life data center, only to reverse that decision?
First of all, the Atlassian for a long time already said that they are cloud first and they want to deliver value in cloud. Data center wasn't really developed for last 2 or 3 years for sure. We were able to see that the strategy was to create new products only in cloud with no options into the data center versions. This was a sign, and we were really careful looking at timelines for everything else. What is happening right now? Atlassian is saying that majority of the customers are in cloud or are in the way of moving to the cloud. It's 99% of the customers already who are at least partially testing the cloud environments, or they are progressing with the migration or are already in the cloud. So from a simple strategy perspective of them, developing 2 different platforms, it's not a good option for anyone. So because of that, they took the resources from the data center to the cloud and developed on these instances. Still in 2022, I believe no one had the plan to sunset the DC, but at the end of the day, even though those people were saying that there is no plan for that, there is a part of the company who is planning the long-term changes, but they are not able to say us in advance that something like that will happen. So you need to also understand that today, when the cloud is meeting most of the customer requirements, by purpose, I'm saying most, it was the good moment to give us 3 years. This is not a rapid move they are doing. They've planned it. They give us a lot of time to prepare and to migrate to the cloud. Okay, next question is to you, Simon. I was told by an Atlassian employee in March that there were no plan to end DC. Why the sudden change?
So these questions reflects how quickly Atlassian roadmap evolved. So in 2022 and early 2023, Atlassian genuinely had no plans to discontinue data center. So, but later, the market shifted faster than expected, as you can see. But in 2024, most enterprise customers had started cloud migrations, and Atlassian realized that supporting both platforms slowed innovation and created technical debt. So this wasn't a sudden change or betrayal, let's say. It was strategic adjustment once cloud proved ready for large-scale use. The message from 2022 was true at that specific moment, but situation changed rapidly as cloud adoption accelerated and cloud infrastructure was more matured.
Thank you, Simon. So next question will be for me. Why did Atlassian keep increasing data center prices over the last few years, only to announce its end of life? Was this a force people to move to the cloud? So first of all, until now, even though the data center wasn't developed, at least the bug fixing and patching security was done by Atlassian. Why they were increasing the price? Because the value of the products were also growing. It wasn't really huge, but at least there was something which was done, the support was done by them. We need to have this in mind. Those costs were rising, and right now, sometimes it's even cheaper for people being in the cloud than being in the data center. So also the price for the cloud is increasing yearly. So we've already used to yearly price increase, and I believe we will be seeing exactly the same in the future. Okay, those questions were connected with the first part. We are moving to the timelines and end-of-life logistics. This is really important part from our perspective. So the first question,
first question is for you, Katarzyna. What happened if we do nothing and let the March 28, 2029 deadline pass?
This is something which Simon already mentioned. The data center instance enters into read-only mode, which means that we are not able to use it on a daily basis work. There will be no security patches or any bug fixing. So you won't be able to renew the licenses. This is in general a really great compliance and regulatory risk. So we need to have in mind that we should go somewhere before this date. I'm not pushing to saying that everyone needs to be on the cloud. We will deep dive into case by case arguments why you can't go to the cloud. But you need to be aware that there won't be option for most of the customers to use data center after this date. Simon, the next question to you. Is there any more info on extended maintenance? how do you qualify and what will it cost?
Okay, thank you for that question. I see some question about it also in the chat. So Atlassian has stated that extended maintenance will be offered only by exception, not as standard support program available to everyone. So this means it applies mainly to regulated industries like finance, government, or healthcare, where compliance or infrastructure restrictions make migration impossible before 2029. So the details and cost will be handled through enterprise agreements, not the public pricing. If you expect to need this kind of extension, you should start discussion with your Atlassian account team or solution partner as early as possible. The perfect will be even in this year. So extended maintenance will be not automatic, and it will be selective, limited, and negotiated individually, client by client.
Thank you, Simon. So still, this is an option for some of you, probably. If you want to deep dive into that with us, we are really eager to help and to help with the conversation with Atlassian if you can qualify for this exception to have the data center for a longer period of time. As far as I saw last week, Atlassian already is saying that the exception will be maximum next 3 years after 2029. So 2032, which seems to be a really long time from now. Okay, next question.
Next for you. Why are Jira Align and Bitbucket DC excluded from the end of life plan?
Deep diving into Bitbucket, the reason given by Atlassian is that the source code and repository management has unique constraints. For example, compliance, enterprise scale, migration cost, especially that they are two totally different products since the beginning. So Atlassian offers a dual license model, both DC and cloud for everyone who will be on the data center starting from next year. The implication for the businesses in this case is that if your organization uses Bitbucket Data Center, you have more runaway and flexibility compared to standard DC products. For now, 2029 March is not the read-only date for Bitbucket Data Center. You have the option for the dual license path, which means you can still you can think about the gradually migrated to cloud if it's possible, or you will be having more time for finding a better solution for you. With Jira Align, it's a little bit different because the Atlassian support end of life policy states that for the self-hosted version of Jira Align follows as a different policy than the rest of the data center products right now. In other words, instead of fixed calendar end of year when the product becomes read-only as the rest of the data center product, Atlassian supports the latest self-hosted release plus immediately prior one. So it means that once you fall behind, your version is out of the support already. That's why they are staying with both hosted options. Okay, Simon, the question to you. Will Atlassian make the source code available after end of life date for those who want to maintain it themselves?
So no, Atlassian has no plans to release the source code for DC products. These tools remain proprietary software, and there is no licensing clause suggesting open source releases for that. Why? Because its code were released, customers could maintain their own DC instances indefinitely, which would completely undermine Atlassian cloud strategy. It also introduced legal and security risk for both sides. So after 2029, the software will remain closed source, and organizations will need to either migrate, move to hybrid setup, or freeze their DC instances for archival use.
Thank you. So we've ended the second part. Right now, we are moving to the planning cost and licensing.
This is for you, Katarzyna. How can we migrate to the cloud without cost exploding, especially with consumption-based features like assets in JSM?
So it's a really good question, and we get plenty of a similar question from our customers. In general, migrating to Atlassian Cloud doesn't have to mean skyrocketing costs. The key is planning, optimization, and phased adoption. Atlassian has introduced flexible pricing model and tools that help align cloud usage with actual needs, and you need to focus on that when you are planning the migration. For consumption-based features like assets in JSM, cost control starts with understanding your real usage of this product. Many organizations maintain massive CMBDs but actively use only a fraction of this data. So migration is a good opportunity to start a cleanup and consolidate data, remove duplicates, unused objects, define an archiving policy to keep the historical data without paying for it, simplify the data model if it's possible. So the fewer relationships mean lower operational overhead. So please have this in mind when you are planning the migration. And I believe you will be able to plan your costs and to make them reasonable.
Okay, Kasia, are marketplace apps also offering a dual licensing bridge?
Yes, I believe we didn't mention this part today. So for most of the customers who are right now on the data center, there is an option to buy the cloud while getting the dual license of the data center for at least 6 months. It depends on the size of the instance and many more reasons also, unfortunately, today. So with the cloud, it's exactly the same. Major vendors like Appfire or Tempo already supports the dual license bridge. So you are able to migrate to cloud without paying double for licenses. So we really recommend to deep dive into this option if you are planning your migration, to plan carefully, because this period is this can be a really long time for the dual license, but at least in general, it helps to migrate with the reasonable time. Next part of the webinar is connected with the security and compliance.
Kasia, what are the options for companies that can't move to the cloud due to data privacy or sovereignty needs?
So I see also there is plenty of questions already in this topic. So first, data center remains supported until March 2029, giving customers time to plan and execute long-term strategies also. Atlassian has introduced data residency options in the cloud available across multiple regions, with more locations being added, which helps many organizations meet compliance standards like GDPR or even local government regulation. For cases where cloud still isn't an option, companies can continue operating in data center while implementing hybrid model. For example, using cloud for collaboration or less sensitive workloads and keeping critical and regulated data on-prem. In parallel, Atlassian Enterprise Roadmap shows a strong focus on data control, encryption, and regional storage. So this gap between on-prem and cloud compliance is shrinking rapidly, and we believe that next year will also give us a significant shrinking of this difference as soon as possible. So the key is to treat this as a binary choice, cloud versus on-prem, but rather as a journey where security and sovereignty requirements can be met step by step through modernization and selective adoption of cloud capabilities. I know that this is still not an option for part of the regions, but we believe that with the push to migration to the cloud and the options like isolated cloud or the government cloud, which we will deep dive, also it's really good to talk to Atlassian about your needs. So we believe that straightforward communication with them around your legal and security needs and compliance and what you need to match is also the good starting point for the conversation where your data will be stored and how. Okay, next question to you, Simon. What is the roadmap for European compliance standard like SecNum Cloud?
So Atlassian is actively working with all of the European regulators and enterprise customers to align regional compliance frameworks like SecNum Cloud in France, for example, and other national certifications. So it's fully created yet. So the roadmap clearly includes regional compliance expansions and data residency within the European Union. So this part, Atlassian broader commitment to localized cloud environments, so all European customers can host and process data under local standards. And also it could be without relying on US infrastructure or other legal frameworks than cloud environment from Atlassian.
Okay, so next question is also to you. Are there plans to offer a government cloud option for institutions outside of the US?
So currently, government cloud exists only in the US and it's FedRAMP certificated. However, Atlassian confirmed in long-term plans to expand this model globally. That means developing regional equivalents that comply with the European Union and national government standards. The company is focused first on the data residency and isolated cloud environments to meet the strict security requirements of public sector's organizations. So while it's not available outside the United States yet, it's clearly part of the long-term roadmap driven by demand from Europe and Asia Pacific.
Thank you, Simon.
The next one, I believe it's for you. Will Atlassian provide isolated cloud environments for customers who need to maintain existing isolation setups?
So yes, the general availability for the isolated cloud is planned for 2026. Atlassian has already said that they are planning to move to this option during last year in Europe. And we are still waiting for more details in this area, but we expect that the need for this option will be growing over the time. So let's stay tuned. Let's wait for more details. But this can be a good option to explore when everything will be publicly known about this option. Simon, the next question is to you. If there is no way to migrate data from data center to cloud without modifying them, structured data bindings, how can we as an organization subject to audit by authorities preserve our original data in a readable form for future audits?
So that crucial question for regulated organizations. So since cloud migration change data structures, you will need a strategy to preserve original created records. So Atlassian recommends two approaches here. First, you can just keep DC instance in the read-only mode after 2029. You should choose isolated and secure internal infrastructure for it. It can serve as historical archive for audit purposes in your case. You can also use an advancing auditing tool for storage like Plank, for example, which you can retain independently data for 5 or 10 years or more. It depends on your needs. You can also create limited cloud site only for archive purposes, and you can just migrate your data there. And you can just set up proper schemes for only few persons on your organization, which should have access to that archive in your cloud ecosystem. You can also combine both these approaches. So you can just use a frozen DC archive for this data and external logs for verified audit trails. So approach to be compliant and save cost on your organization.
Thank you, Simon. And we've ended this part. We are right now moving to the feature gaps and customizations. First question to you, Simon. What happens to our essential custom Groovy scripts and script runner when moved to the cloud?
Okay, so in the cloud for this moment, there is no automatic migration of Groovy scripting. Adaptavis work something based on AI that could help you with the adjustment of the scripts, but this is still on the beta version and not available for everyone. But it doesn't mean you lose all the automation. You can, some of that scripts you can adjust. You can just replace on scripting with API-based automation and custom apps built in Forge, for example. Forge is Atlassian secured cloud framework for that custom solutions. The idea is to move away from local scripting towards modern, scalable, and governed solutions. So most common scripts use cases now have cloud equivalents, and where they don't Forge or natively automation really fills the gap. So you still get flexibility, but in a way that's safer and easier to maintain.
Thank you, Simon. Next question is for me.
Yes. How do we handle the loss of deep customization? Our instance is so tailored, it barely looks like Jira.
So this is the sentence we are hearing almost constantly. The main reasoning after the transformation of the way of working when you are moving to the cloud is to make it as simple as possible. And by purpose, we are saying that we are hearing the story of a really customized instance, but at the end of the day, it turns out that those customizations were done 9, 10, 15 years ago. Something is working as it was working for those time, but the reality is changing. So sometimes we can make a significant simplification of how we are working in Jira, and it's really helpful. Also, there is a forge, and it can be used for rebuilding the key logic if you need. There is plenty of options for automations, the build one, even without the script runner or using the script runner. So I would say the journey to the cloud should focus on the configuration over customization. It will be really easier to maintain during the long period of time, and it will be long time easier to adjust the current needs of the end users. There is some kind of the loss you can have and you can feel, but at the end of the day, let's rethink how you are working and adjust your Jira to your current needs without having in mind that something should work exactly the same as it's working for the last 10 years. Next question.
Is also for you. Is the cloud user experience and performance really better than a tuned data center environment?
Of course, the best answer here is it depends, but still we can say that the performance of the cloud is right now really good. In general, you don't have an upgrade, so there is a zero downtime continuous updates for a cloud in comparison to manual patching, testing, and doing the upgrades on the data center. The UX for cloud is much more different, much more easier to work. Not maybe for you, because part of you are technical people who are working with data center and in general other tools for on a daily basis, but for the end users. So those who should be navigating in the cloud for the first time, and it will be much easier for them to start than in the data center. And we already have in mind the availability, which is the enterprise grade, I would say. So with really high SLA, depending on the plan, of course, but you shouldn't be afraid of that, because no matter if you are on the cloud or data center, sometimes it happens that the performance is degraded, something is going on, and you cannot predict that simply. Okay, Simon, the next question to you. What do we do about apps where the cloud version doesn't have the same features as the data center version?
So that's one of the biggest challenges during the migrations. So start by checking app's cloud readiness, ideally using the Jira or Confluence Migration Assistant for that. There is a lot of features if you can just check it and check these gaps between DC and the cloud. Then contact vendors to understand their feature roadmap. Many are still closing the gap between DC and the cloud. Many also have even more features in the cloud than the DC. That's also so great. But where gaps remain, consider cloud native alternative, for example, automations or other cloud built-in functionalities, or rebuild essential logic with Forge. So it's good time to simplify environment during that cloud transition. Many DC add-ons can be replaced by built-in cloud functionality, as I mentioned before. So don't just mirror your DC setup. You can just modernize it during that cloud upgrade for your organization.
Thank you, Simon. So let's move to the migration complexity.
This is for you, Katarzyna. How difficult is the data center to cloud migration going to be?
Okay, so it depends on the many factors. First of them is the instance size, the app portfolio which you are using. If those apps are able to be migrated with the cloud migration assistant, or they need to be manually migrated to the cloud, how you are using your custom workflows. Are you using the cloud native automations or not? If you have a script runner, it will also add a significant sometimes works for migrating to the cloud. The data quality, if you have an old, inactive, and inconsistent data, the migration will be longer, more costly. So it's always good to start with the cleanup and having the part of the data you really don't need in the cloud, and way of the user management. So in general, by looking at only those 5 points, it's really complicated to say. It's really difficult. Sometimes it's not. And we can say that because we are doing those migration on a daily basis, that sometimes migration, it's not really difficult project, but sometimes it is a really difficult project, and we need to think and plan it properly to avoid risk during the project and losing the data, especially to have at the end of the day working instance. So let's have this in mind, and we can deep dive into this section later also. Question to you, Simon. how can we migrate when we have deep customizations with other on-premise systems not exposed to the internet?
So that's a very common blocker, but there are solutions for it. First, map out all of your integrations on your organization between your Atlassian tools and internal systems. Then use Atlassian application tunnels or API gateways to create secure private connections between your cloud and on-premise environments. You can also adopt hybrid setup, keeping your key integrations between your cloud on-prem. So, for example, you can just use here Bitbucket DC to connect to your cloud Jira or Confluence instances or middleware during that transition. And of course, test everything early in the staging environment. That's the best way to avoid surprises during the cutovers. So if you are not defined this at the beginning, you can just realize after the production migration that you skipped some of the customization with external apps that your business cannot accept, and you need to do a rollback of that cloud migration. And you lost a lot of time you spent on it.
Thank you, Simon.
This is for you, Katarzyna. Can you explain the FastShip program and how it helps?
FastShip is the program which was announced by Atlassian publicly during the end of life announcement. So this is a program where Atlassian is helping with migration part of the data. So when we are planning the whole project, there is a part of the data which are directly migrated with the TMJ, and Atlassian is helping with that. So this is an option to, first of all, reduce the typical migration timeline from 12 to 18 months even to 2 or 6 for depends on the instance size. By that, we are focusing rather on the post-migration adoption than the simple work of doing the migration, which enables you to have the better adoption will land in the future. In the cloud. If you have 1,000 plus users, you can start talking about this program with Atlassian. It's not resolving probably all your needs. Atlassian will not do the whole migration for you, but at least there is part of the project which can be enabled and do much faster. Okay. So we've moved forward through all those questions we've got from you already. If you still have questions and we won't be able to answer them during the Q&A, this is the offer we have for you as a bonus. So you can meet with us and we will start pre-migration data center review. We can go through specific points with you to make sure you understand what is the challenge for you, where you have blockers and how to approach them. So for everyone who wants to use this, of course, at no cost, this is not a sales pitch. This is just to support your project and to make sure you will be happy with the cloud and avoid the problems with the migration. You can connect to me via email. You have this email at the end of the presentation. It also will be stated. Get back to us and we will try to help you. Also, the quick reminder that there is a Knowledge Hub and you will get the access to it after the webinar. There will be also a today's presentation and the recording. All of you will get the access to the question also, which we are answering right now. And by saying that, I am saying that we are moving to the Q&A session. There is plenty of questions. Let's start with the first one. What about exports and snapshot after March 2029?
So if it comes to built-in functionality like backup, export to XML, or for example, JQL issue export, this built-in to CSV or PDF, this will be worked. But if you have some plugins which extend this functionality to export to other type of files, it could not work. So it depends of the plugin vendor. But this built-in functionality will work after this time.
Okay, so after that question, there is a few of them connected with the legal requirements and the blockers of migrating into the cloud. So I would say its question and its case is different. Sometimes it happens that customers thinking, okay, I cannot move to the cloud because, and we can figure out why, deep dive into those reasoning and starting work with Atlassian to resolve those blockers. So it's really important, even if you are working with the solution partner, to talk to them, work with Atlassian, and if this is not an option for you to migrate to the cloud, start talking about the extended support for data center today, or looking for an alternative platform for you. I know that this is not the best option for anyone. And for sure, this is not the goal and the aim we have today. But we do understand that sometimes legal requirements for specific market are different than even for the neighbors. I would say in general, Atlassian is saying that 99% of the customers are not blocked to the moving to the cloud, but sometimes it happens. And we need to understand those blockers deeply to be able to resolve them or push Atlassian to change something in their roadmap, like adding the new data residency regions, etc. Okay, is there an option to select a data center location in the UA that is fully GDPR compliant?
We've got for European Union, we can just select some regions like European Union based in Ireland, in Germany, and region Germany, which is based in Frankfurt. Of course, it's based on AWS, but I'm not sure what you mean fully GDPR compliant. Statement is that all of that environment is GDPR compliant, ready for all of the application they've got for the data residency.
Yes, so I also suggest to move the deep diving into this question for the session with us, and we will be trying to find out what is the solution. Okay, the next question. We are using the test flow plugin. Is there a plan to provide a cloud version?
There is no plan, but why in the cloud we've got different plugin called RTM, or Requirements and Test Management for Jira. It's a little bit different plugin, but still most of the functionality of them are the same. For now, unfortunately, there is no any automatic migration tool to migrate data from this one tool to another, but as Divinity, we have specific process how to migrate this. But at the beginning of your journey, probably you need to contact our apps team, which are developing requirements and test management, and just check contact from the marketplace Atlassian, and they can explain you during the live session the difference between two plugins.
Thank you, Simon. So let's move to the next question. Some of us, due to regulation, cannot switch to the cloud. Do you have any thoughts on a private cloud in this context?
Yes, so during the webinar, Atlassian working on that. We are waiting for fully supported this solution, but still we don't have specific date for that.
Yes, the release date is next calendar year. So as soon as we will have more information around that, I believe we also organizing a webinar around that. This offering seems to be really helpful for part of the customers. So we'll be deep diving into it as soon as possible. Okay, next question. We have a high level of automation and API connectivity in both directions with other non-Atlassian systems. What is the capability of that on the cloud? That is a great concern for us.
It depends how you are using it. You need to deep dive to API documentation for cloud because they are pretty same, but of course there are some differences. And still we don't have all API connectors as in the data center for everything. Mostly is depending on that because we don't have directly access to the database, but there is also other reasons. So first thing, you need to check API documentation from Atlassian, and you need to be sure how your applications, these integrations are working these days.
Thank you, Simon. So the next question, what about the customers that got an extension of end of life till 2032? Will the plugins still work? So in general, there is no details around that as the date for 2032 was published last week. But I believe personally, I am almost sure that the marketplace vendors will follow the strategy of Atlassian. So it means that if you will get the extension of using the data center after the end of life, the same will happen with the app. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for most of you because especially in data center, the amount of the usage of apps is huge. Of course, not for sure because there is no details, but at least we will be exploring this topic with the most popular producers as soon as possible. Then there were a question around the non-profit community license, but I saw that there was already answered on the chat with the email address where headed them. And yes, with community licenses, it's always the best approach to reach out to Atlassian directly. Okay, I believe we were covering this also. Are there migration tools from Jira and Confluence to facilitate the process? What about Script Runner? We have a lot of development. Seems a real problem.
So, as I mentioned before during the webinar, most of the script runner scripts these days are ready to readjust in the cloud. But of course, this is a lot of work. You can just contact with Adaptavist and try to join this beta program for that AI functionality to readjustment your scripts. But as I mentioned during the webinar, it's a great moment to check built-in functionalities in Jira or Confluence Cloud directly, because maybe a lot of them these days you can just replace with that functionalities and you don't need scripts anymore. Maybe you can just switch to automations built into Jira. So this is a great moment to review of all of that, your configuration to transition to cloud.
Thank you, Simon. So the next question is, could you send us Q&A list example in the PDF? So everything which was covered during the presentation, you will find on the knowledge base, plus the recording from the today webinar.
One step back maybe to that question regarding to Script Runner. If you need, as a Divinity, we prepare such assessment audits regarding the scripts also. So if you need any help with that, we can support you and we can help you auditing scripts one by one and check if the migration of them to the cloud is possible with the Script Runner and Groovy scripting. If not, we can just give you alternatives for that. And we can estimate how many days we need to readjust to each script.
Yeah, so this is part of the preparation to the migration project itself. And we believe that this is the most important part of the whole project, I believe. Okay, let's move to the next question because we still have a lot of them and we want to cover as much as possible. User is today shared with a third-party country in Jira Cloud. Will that be resolved to fit the GDPR?
So if the vendors use Forge these days, so if the vendor use Forge, it means that in 90% that you can just pin that data to your data residency region you selected during the cloud setup. So this is now resolved, and not maybe most, but a lot of vendors now are using Forge, and you can just pin this data residency also for plugins for your organization. But yes, still some of the vendors are using Connect for writing the apps, and it depends where these vendors have this data on their servers, there these data are located. So this is very important point during the analysis phase, during the audit phase before the migration, to check all of that apps you've got and check to where are they hosted. If they are using Connect and if they are using Forge, there is possibility to connect this data to your data residency on the cloud. You can set up this on the same page where you set up data residency for your Jira and Confluence applications. So this is quite resolved these days, but still we are waiting for some of the vendors to change that process.
Thank you, Simon. So next question. Will Atlassian offer an alternative on-premise tool for JSM after the Jira Data Center end of life? So we believe it won't happen. So if Atlassian already announced sunset of data center products, in general, they will be sticking to this decision. So there will be no on-prem alternatives for JSM from Atlassian. Okay, the next question. Does Atlassian provide any way to access and interact with the database of cloud instance?
No, for this moment, there is no such an option. Atlassian thinks about it, and probably some of the features will be available, but for enterprise environments. But for most clients on standard and premium license, this will not be available.
Thank you. What about nonprofits that will have to assume a huge cost increase per user compared to the community data center licenses? Yes, I do feel your pain right now. I don't know if we have a solution right away for you, but let us check that, and maybe after the webinar, we can try to figure it out. What is the option for the nonprofits organization?
Next question. When Jira DC will be in read-only mode, will it be possible to get the data from it via API? So yes, you just read the data, you don't change anything. So this request for only to take information will be available after your instance will be on read-only mode.
Thank you, Simon. Next question also to you. We use our local Active Directory service as authentication repo. Are Cloud, Jira, and Confluence capable with that?
So if you are using Active Directory on-premise, only some SSO will be available for that model in Atlassian Guard, because to integrate user directory with external IDPs, we need to call our application called Atlassian Guard in the cloud. And it supports a lot of IDP vendors, but mostly they are cloud solutions like Entra ID, which is Active Directory on the cloud, Okta, OneLogin, Google Workspace, and they are fully supported for user and group provisioning and some SSO. But this on-premise solutions is only available for some SSO. You can just do one synchronization of the users during the login to the local directory in the Atlassian Cloud ecosystem, but this is not fully supported. So it means if you want to use that feature for user and group provisioning, you need to do some custom integrations, or you need to just move to the cloud solutions like Entra ID, for example.
Okay, thank you. We've reached out to the end of the webinar in terms of the time, unfortunately. There is still plenty of questions which didn't get the answers. So we'll try to work on that, maybe share the list with the answers to you after the webinar. But still, we really recommend to get back to us and try to talk about those questions and your concerns. We see there's plenty of them. And I believe we are able to help you and sometimes figure it out how to properly plan the migration, how to resolve some of them. You have the contact details to me and to Simon, and we can organize sessions for all of you. The follow-up is for everyone, so also for a nonprofit organization. And as I said, it's free of charge. So thank you guys for coming today, for being so active on the chat. But by saying that, I know that there is still unanswered questions, and there's a lot of them. So let us work on them and create a proper content for you also, and to answer as much as possible. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for everything. This is the end of today's webinar, and I hope we'll be able to see a lot of you on the next webinars we are organizing.
So thank you very much also from my side, and see you on the next webinars.